I woke up floating 3 inches above the floor, and that's when I knew the thing in my aunt's ceiling had finally won. My body felt wrong, too light, too cold, like I was made of mist instead of flesh. I tried to touch the ground, but my feet wouldn't reach. I tried to scream, but the sound came from somewhere far away, like my voice was trapped in another room. That's when I saw it in the mirror across the hallway. My reflection was smiling at me. But I wasn't smiling. It moved independently, tilting its head at that broken angle I'd seen before, the angle that nothing human could manage. My reflection's mouth opened wider than mine ever could, and I watched in horror as something pale and thin began crawling out from between my reflected teeth, long fingers, impossibly long, reaching out toward the glass from the inside. Behind me, I heard the scraping sound. The same sound I'd been hearing for weeks, the sound that came from the crawlspace above the ceiling where my aunt told me never, ever to look. But this time it wasn't coming from above. It was coming from inside my own chest. I looked down and saw movement beneath my shirt. Something was shifting under my skin, repositioning itself, learning the shape of me from the inside out. I lifted my shirt with shaking hands and saw it, a handprint pressing outward against my ribs, fingers spreading wide, like something was trying to push its way out. He offered himself freely, I heard it whisper in my own voice. Now we are one. It was March when I moved to Mbale Village to stay with my Aunt Grace while I finished my final year at the technical college nearby. The house was old but well kept, a simple 4-room structure with a tin roof and concrete floors. My aunt lived there with my cousin Amani, who was 21, just 2 years older than me. Amani was quiet, almost too quiet, and she had this habit of staring at the ceiling for long periods without blinking. The first week was normal. I attended classes during the day, came home in the evenings, ate dinner with them, studied, and slept in the small guest room at the back of the house. But on the 8th night, I woke up to a sound I couldn't identify. It was past 2 in the morning. The sound was coming from above me, a slow, deliberate scraping, like something being dragged across wood. I lay there in the darkness, listening. The ceiling in that house was made of old wooden boards, and above it was a crawlspace that ran the length of the building. My aunt had told me it was just for storage and ventilation, nothing important. The scraping stopped. Then I heard it again, but this time it was moving. Moving from one end of the house toward my room. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. The scraping grew louder, closer, directly above me now. And then it stopped. Complete silence. I should have stayed in bed. I should have pulled the blanket over my head and waited for morning. But I didn't. I got up and opened my bedroom door to check the hallway. That's when I saw it. There was a square opening in the ceiling of the hallway, a hatch I had never noticed before. It was open. And coming down from it, moving in a way that made my skin crawl, was something that looked like a person but wasn't. It descended head first, impossibly slow, its limbs bent at wrong angles. The body was naked and pale, almost gray, stretched too thin like it had been pulled on a rack. The fingers were long, far too long, and they gripped the edges of the walls as it lowered itself down without making a sound. When it reached the floor, it didn't stand. It stayed crouched, its head tilted to one side, and I could see its face in the dim moonlight coming through the window. It had no eyes. Just smooth skin where eyes should have been. But it was looking at me. I knew it was looking at me. I opened my mouth to scream, and that's when my Aunt Grace's bedroom door flew open. "Don't," she whispered harshly, stepping between me and the thing. "Don't make a sound. Don't look at it. Go back to your room. Now." I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at this thing crouched in the hallway of my aunt's house like it belonged there. "Kofi, please," my aunt begged, and I'd never heard her voice sound like that, terrified and desperate. "Go back to your room and close the door. Pretend you didn't see anything. The thing tilted its head further, almost 90 degrees, as if listening to her. Then, slowly, it began crawling back toward the open hatch. It moved like a spider, limbs bending in ways that shouldn't be possible, and it climbed back up into the ceiling. The hatch closed behind it with a soft click. My aunt grabbed my arm and pulled me into my room, shutting the door behind us. Her hands were shaking. "You didn't see that," she said. "Do you understand me? You didn't see anything." "What was that?" My voice came out broken, barely a whisper. "Something that doesn't concern you. Something you need to forget about." "Auntie, that thing." I said forget about it. She was crying now, tears running down her face. "Please, Kofi. For your own safety. For all of our safety. You cannot speak about this. You cannot ask questions. You have to pretend tonight never happened." She left my room and I heard her door close. I sat on my bed, shaking, unable to process what I'd just seen. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat there with the lights on, staring at my own ceiling, listening for any sound of movement above. When morning came, I wanted to leave. I wanted to pack my things and go back to the city, back to my parents' house, anywhere but here. But my aunt acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast, smiled at me, asked about my classes. Amani sat at the table, eating her porridge in silence, staring at her plate. I tried to bring it up once, carefully. "Auntie, last night I thought I heard." "You had a nightmare," she interrupted, not looking at me. "The first few nights in a new place can be difficult. You probably ate too late. It affects your sleep." "But I saw. You had a nightmare, Kofi." Her voice was firm now, final. "That's all." I looked at Amani, hoping for some acknowledgement, some sign that she knew what lived in this house. She finally looked up at me, and for just a second, I saw pure terror in her eyes. Then she looked away. That's when I noticed something else. The chairs in the sitting room had been rearranged. They were facing the wall instead of the center of the room. The pictures on the hallway wall were crooked, tilted at odd angles. The shoes by the front door were lined up in a perfect row, even though I knew they'd been scattered the night before. Someone, or something, had been moving things while we slept. I lasted 3 more days before I couldn't take it anymore. Things kept getting rearranged every single night. I would wake up and find my textbook stacked in strange patterns. My clothes would be folded differently than I'd left them. Once, I found all the cups in the kitchen turned upside down. On the 4th night after I'd seen the thing, I confronted my aunt again. This time I didn't ask politely. "What is in this house?" I demanded. "What is that thing in the ceiling, and why are you letting it stay here?" She looked at me for a long time, and I saw her resolve break. She was exhausted, I realized. She'd been carrying this secret for so long that she could barely hold it anymore. "Sit down," she said quietly. "I'll tell you. But once you know, you can never unknow it. And you can never speak of it outside these walls." I sat down at the kitchen table. Amani was already there, her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. My aunt took a deep breath. 15 years ago, she began, when Amani was 6 years old, she got very sick. The doctors couldn't help her. She was dying, and there was nothing we could do. My husband, Joseph, was desperate. He went to see a man in the forest, someone people whispered about, someone who knew things that shouldn't be known. She paused, her hands trembling. That man told Joseph he could save Amani. But there would be a price. We would have to make a promise, a binding one. We would have to let something live in our home. Not in the house exactly, but above it. In the crawl space. And we could never, ever acknowledge its presence. Never speak to it. Never look directly at it if we saw it. And never, ever tell it to leave. My blood ran cold. Joseph agreed. I asked. We both did, my aunt whispered. We were going to lose our daughter. What choice did we have? I looked at Amani. She was crying silently, tears running down her face. It saved her, my aunt continued. Amani recovered within days. And the thing moved in. For years, it stayed up there, quiet mostly. Sometimes we'd hear it moving around at night. Sometimes things would be moved. But it kept to itself. It kept its distance. Then what changed? I asked. My aunt's face went pale. It's getting bolder, she said. It used to only come down once or twice a month. Now it's every night. And it's not just rearranging things anymore. It's watching us. It's waiting for something. Waiting for what? She looked at me with hollow eyes. I don't know. But I think the promise is coming to an end. And I think it wants more than we agreed to give. The days after my aunt's confession were worse than the days before it. At least when I didn't know, I could tell myself I was imagining things, that the stress of school was making me see things that weren't there. But now I knew. Now I understood that something inhuman was living above our heads, something that had been given permission to be there, and there was nothing we could do about it. I tried to leave twice. The first time, I packed my bag and told my aunt I was going back to the city. She didn't argue. She just looked at me with those tired, defeated eyes and said, "It won't let you go." I thought she was being dramatic. I walked to the main road and waited for a matatu. 3 different vehicles passed me by even though I was clearly signaling. The 4th one stopped, but when the driver saw my face, he shook his head and drove off without a word. A woman selling mangoes nearby looked at me and quickly gathered her things and left. I walked back to the house. My aunt was sitting on the veranda, waiting. "It marks people," she said quietly. "Once you've seen it, really seen it, you carry something. People can sense it, even if they don't understand what they're sensing. They just know to stay away." The second time I tried to leave was in the middle of the night. I didn't tell anyone. I just grabbed my bag and headed for the door. But when I reached for the handle, I heard movement above me. That familiar scraping sound, but faster now, urgent. It was following me from room to room, tracking my movement through the ceiling. I stood there with my hand on the door handle, and I heard it stop directly above me. Waiting. Watching through the wooden board somehow, even though it had no eyes. I went back to my room. After that, I stopped trying to leave. I accepted that I was trapped here until what? I didn't know. None of us knew. The disturbances got worse. It wasn't just objects being rearranged anymore. One morning I woke up to find mud footprints on my bedroom floor, long, thin footprints that didn't look human. They led from the window to my bed and back to the window. I hadn't heard it come in. I hadn't felt it standing over me while I slept. Amani stopped speaking entirely. She would sit in her room for hours, staring at the ceiling, her lips moving silently. I asked my aunt what she was doing, and my aunt said Amani was praying. But it didn't look like prayer to me. It looked like she was listening to something. Having a conversation with something we couldn't hear. 2 weeks after my aunt told me the truth, I found the photographs. I was looking for extra blankets in the storage cupboard when I found an old shoebox pushed to the back. Inside were pictures of my Uncle Joseph, my aunt's late husband. I'd never met him, he died 7 years ago, when I was 12. My family didn't talk about him much. But these photos were strange. In every single one, there was something wrong with the image. A blur in the background. A shadow that didn't match any object in the room. In one photo, taken at Amani's 8th birthday party, there was what looked like a hand, a too long hand with too long fingers, reaching down from the top of the frame, just barely visible. At the bottom of the box, I found a letter. It was written in my uncle's handwriting, addressed to my aunt but never sent. The paper was old, the ink faded in places. I read it standing there in the hallway, and with every line, my hands shook harder. The letter explained everything. My uncle wrote that the man in the forest, the one who'd helped them save Amani, had warned them the agreement would last exactly 15 years. After that, the thing in the ceiling would expect something more. It would want to be acknowledged. It would want to be invited fully into the family, not just tolerated above it. When the 15 years are complete, my uncle wrote, it will begin to show itself during the day. It will stop hiding. And if we do not give it what it wants, it will take Amani back. It will take back the life it saved, plus interest. Grace, I'm writing this because I won't live to see the end of this bargain. I can feel it watching me more closely now. I think it knows I want to break the promise. I think it's going to punish me for that thought alone. The letter ended there. No signature. No final words. My uncle died 3 weeks after writing it. The official cause was a heart attack. He was found in the crawlspace above the house, even though no one could explain why he would have gone up there. His body was twisted in a way that the police said didn't make sense for a heart attack. Like something had folded him up to fit in a small space. I put the letter back and closed the box. My hands were numb. I did the math in my head. Amani had gotten sick 15 years ago. She was 21 now. Which meant the 15-year agreement had ended 4 months ago. Right around the time I moved in. That night at dinner, I showed my aunt the letter. She read it and started crying silently, tears dropping onto the old paper. I know, she whispered. I knew the time was coming. That's why I didn't want you here, Kofi. I tried to tell your mother you shouldn't come, but she insisted. She said it would be good for you, good for me to have company. She doesn't know. Nobody knows except us. What does it want? I asked. The letter says it wants to be acknowledged, invited in. What does that mean? Amani spoke for the first time in days. Her voice was hoarse, amused. It wants to be family, she said, not looking at us. It wants what it gave me. A body. A life. It's been waiting 15 years to be born properly, and it thinks we owe it that. My aunt's face went white. Amani, what are you saying? It talks to me, Mama, Amani said, and now she was crying too. It's been talking to me for months. At first, I thought I was going crazy, but then I realized it was real. It speaks through the walls, through the ceiling. It tells me what it wants. What does it want? I demanded. Amani finally looked at us, and her eyes were empty, resigned. It wants me to go up there, she said. It wants me to climb into the crawlspace and stay with it. It says if I do that, it will leave the rest of you alone. It will have what it was promised, a life, a body, a family. It says it can wear me like I wear clothes. It says it won't hurt, that I'll just fall asleep and when I wake up, I'll be both of us at the same time. No, my aunt said immediately, standing up. Absolutely not. We're not giving you to that thing. Then it will take all of us, Amani said calmly. It told me. If I don't go willingly by the new moon, it will come down during the day and it will take everyone in this house. It will fold us up like Papa and put us in the walls where no one will ever find us. I looked at the calendar on the wall. The new moon was in 5 days. That night, I lay in bed and tried to think of a way out. There had to be something we could do. We could burn the house down. We could call a priest, a pastor, someone who dealt with these things. We could go to the police. But even as I thought these things, I knew they wouldn't work. This wasn't a ghost or a demon from the stories I'd heard in church. This was something older, something that existed in the spaces between promises and deaths. It had been invited in. It had saved a life. And now it wanted payment. Around midnight, I heard Amani's door open. I got up and looked into the hallway. She was standing there in her nightdress, looking up at the hatch in the ceiling. "Amani," I whispered. "What are you doing?" "It's calling me," she said. "Every night it calls louder. I don't think I can resist much longer." The hatch above her head creaked. Slowly, it began to open. My aunt burst out of her room, saw what was happening, and screamed, "No. The deal is off. You hear me? The deal is off. Leave my daughter alone." The hatch stopped moving. The house went completely silent. And then we heard it. A sound from above, all around us, coming from every part of the ceiling at once. It was laughter. Low, rasping, wet laughter that didn't sound like it came from anything with lungs or a throat. When it finally stopped, we heard something else. Footsteps. Not in the crawlspace this time. Inside the house. Walking down the hallway toward us from the direction of my room. But there was no one there. Just the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, accompanied by that scraping sound, like something was dragging itself along the walls. My aunt grabbed Amani and pulled her back into her bedroom, slamming the door. I ran to my room and locked myself in. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I heard breathing. Slow, rattling breaths. And then I heard its voice for the first time. It spoke in a whisper that seemed to come from inside my own head. "You cannot break what was promised," it said. I was invited. I saved the child. I am owed. And I always collect what I am owed. The door handle started to turn even though I'd locked it. I backed away, grabbing the only weapon I could find, a textbook from my desk. The door opened. But nothing came in. The doorway was empty. And then I looked up and saw it clinging to the ceiling above the doorframe, its eyeless face turned down toward me, its two long fingers spread wide against the plaster. It had stopped visiting. It had decided to stay. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen, staring up at that thing on my ceiling. Time felt broken, stretched out like melted plastic. The creature didn't move. It just clung there, its head hanging down at that impossible angle, its body pressed flat against the plaster like it had no bones, like it was just skin draped over something that could reshape itself however it wanted. Then it smiled. I didn't know it had a mouth until that moment. The skin of its face split horizontally, too wide, revealing teeth that were thin and translucent like fish bones. And it smiled at me. I ran. I didn't think, I just bolted out of the room, down the hallway, and burst into my aunt's bedroom where she and Amani were huddled together on the bed. I slammed the door behind me and pushed a chair against it, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. Doors didn't matter to something that lived in the ceiling, that could fold itself small enough to fit through cracks. "It's inside," I gasped. It came down. "It's in my room." My aunt's face was white, her eyes red from crying. "I tried to break the promise," she whispered. "I thought if I just said it out loud, if I revoked it, maybe." "You can't revoke it, Mama," Amani said. Her voice was strange now, distant, like she was talking from somewhere far away. "You don't understand what Papa did. He didn't just ask for help. He offered a trade. My life for its life. It gave up whatever it was before to save me, and now it wants to finish becoming." "Becoming what?" I asked. Amani turned to look at me, and I saw something terrible in her eyes. Acceptance. Human, she said. It wants to be human. And the only way it can do that is to replace one of us. Wear us from the inside out until there's nothing left of who we were. We stayed in that room for the rest of the night. We heard it moving through the house, no longer trying to hide. We heard furniture being dragged. Glass breaking. At one point, we heard all the family photos being torn off the walls, one by one, the frames cracking as they hit the floor. Just before dawn, the sound stopped. My aunt opened the door carefully. The hallway was destroyed. Everything had been rearranged, broken, scattered. But the thing was gone. Or at least, we couldn't see it. We have to leave, I said. Right now. We have to get out of this house. We tried that already, my aunt said. It won't let us. Then we burn it down. We burn the whole house down with it inside. Amani shook her head. It doesn't live in the house, Kofi. The house is just where we invited it to visit. It lives somewhere else, somewhere between. Fire won't kill it. Nothing will kill it. It exists because of a promise, and promises like that don't die until they're fulfilled. Then what do we do? I was shouting now, my voice cracking. We just wait for it to take one of us. We just let it win. There might be one way, my aunt said quietly. She was looking at something on the floor, one of the torn photographs. She picked it up. It was the picture from Amani's 8th birthday, the one with the hand reaching down from the top of the frame. The man in the forest, she said. The one Joseph went to. He's still alive. I've heard people mention him over the years. If he made this bargain, maybe he knows how to unmake it. It was a desperate hope, but it was all we had. We left the house as the sun came up, moving quickly. I kept expecting to feel that sensation of being marked, of being turned away, but we made it to the main road. We caught a matata heading toward the forest settlement where the man supposedly lived. The driver gave us strange looks but didn't refuse us. Maybe it was because there were 3 of us, or maybe the thing's attention was elsewhere. It took us 2 hours to reach the edge of the forest. The driver dropped us off at a dirt path and drove away quickly, like he didn't want to linger. We walked for another hour, following directions my aunt remembered from years ago. We found the man's house deep in the forest. It was more of a shack, really, built from scrap wood and rusted metal. An old man sat outside, so thin he looked like he was made of sticks, wearing clothes that might have been any color once but were now just shades of dirt and age. He looked up as we approached, and his eyes went straight to Amani. "Ah," he said. "The borrowed child. You've come because the loan is due." My aunt stepped forward. "My husband came to you 15 years ago. You saved our daughter. But you didn't tell us everything. You didn't tell us what it would want when the time came." The old man laughed, a sound like dry leaves. "Your husband knew exactly what he was agreeing to. I told him plain, 15 years of life for the child, and then the visitor would want to become permanent. He chose to accept those terms. There has to be a way to break it," my aunt pleaded. "Please. She's my daughter. I can't let that thing take her." The old man studied Amani for a long moment. "It's already started, hasn't it? It's already inside her, just a little. That's why she looks so pale, why she seems far away. It's been preparing her, getting her ready." Amani nodded slowly. I saw it then, what he was talking about. She looked thinner than she had a week ago. Her skin had a gray tint to it. And her eyes didn't blink as often as they should. The only way to break a promise like this, the old man said, is to replace it with a stronger promise. A sacrifice freely given, not negotiated. Someone would have to offer themselves in her place, willingly, with no conditions and no hope of return. My aunt didn't hesitate. "I'll do it. Take me instead of her." The old man shook his head. "It doesn't want you. It wants youth. It wants years of life ahead, not years behind. The mother is no use to it." He looked at me. My blood turned to ice. "No," Amani said suddenly, her voice sharp and clear. "No. Not him. He has nothing to do with this. Someone has to choose," the old man said. "Either the borrowed child returns what was loaned, or someone else takes her debt. Those are the only two paths. There is no third option. There is no escape." We walked back through the forest in silence. What was there to say? I was 19 years old. I had my whole life ahead of me. But so did Amani. And she'd already lived 15 years under the shadow of this thing, 15 years knowing that something had given her life and would one day come to collect. When we got back to the house, it was waiting. It had arranged every piece of broken furniture into a throne in the center of the sitting room, and it sat there in broad daylight, not hiding anymore, its long body folded up in a way that hurt to look at. The eyeless face turned toward us as we entered. "You went looking for answers," it said, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Did you find what you sought?" My aunt stepped in front of Amani. "You can't have her. The promise was made under false pretenses. You didn't tell us everything. I told your husband exactly what he needed to know. He chose not to ask the right questions. That is not my fault." It stood up, unfolding itself, growing taller and taller until its head brushed the ceiling. "The new moon is tomorrow night. The girl comes to me then, or I take everyone in this house. That was always the agreement." "Take me," I heard myself say. Everyone turned to look at me. My aunt started to protest, but I kept talking. "I'm younger than Amani. More years ahead. Isn't that what you want? Take me instead. Let her go." The thing tilted its head, considering. Then it moved toward me, crossing the room in one impossible step. It leaned down, bringing its face close to mine. I could smell it now, earth and rot and something else, something that had never been alive and never been dead. "You would trade yourself," it whispered. "Freely. With no conditions." I thought about my parents. My friends. My future. Everything I would lose. Then I looked at Amani, at the gray tint to her skin, at the way she looked like she was already halfway gone. "Yes," I said. "I'll take her place." The thing's smile widened. "No." Amani screamed. She pushed past my aunt and grabbed my arm. "Kofi, no. You don't understand what you're agreeing to." But I did understand. Or at least, I understood enough. The thing reached out with one long finger and touched my forehead. The moment it made contact, I felt something cold pour into me, flooding through my veins like ice water. My vision went dark. I heard my aunt screaming, heard Amani crying, and then I heard nothing at all. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor of the sitting room. My aunt and Amani were gone. The house was empty. I stood up, and that's when I realized something was wrong. I could see everything, the whole room, every corner, every shadow, but I couldn't feel the floor under my feet. I looked down. I was floating 3 inches above the ground. I tried to call out, but my voice sounded wrong, distant, like it was coming from somewhere else. And then I understood. The thing hadn't taken me instead of Amani. It had taken me in addition to her. We'd given it exactly what it wanted, 2 lives instead of 1. And now it had enough to become something new, something worse. I'm still in this house. I can't leave. I've tried. But every time I reach the door, I find myself back in the sitting room, or in the hallway, or in the crawlspace above where it keeps Amani. She's still alive. I can hear her sometimes, crying softly in the dark. And I can feel it, the thing, wearing both of us like clothes it's still learning to fit properly. During the day, it goes out into the village wearing my face, or Amani's face, living the lives we were supposed to live. At night, it brings us back here and hangs us up in the ceiling like coats. My aunt visits sometimes. She stands outside the house and cries, but she never comes in. She knows what we've become. If you're watching this, if you've made it this far, please understand, some promises can't be broken. Some debts can't be escaped. And some things, once you invite them in, will never leave. If someone you love is dying, if you're desperate enough to make a bargain with something that shouldn't exist, remember this story. Remember what happened to us. Because the thing living in my aunt's house is still hungry. And it's learning, every day, how to pass for human. One day, it will perfect the disguise. And then it will invite more people in. I'm telling you this story because I need someone to know. I need someone to warn others. The house still stands in Mbale village. My aunt moved away, but she couldn't sell it. No one will buy it. Sometimes at night, people walking past say they see lights moving inside, shadows that don't match any human shape. If you ever find yourself near that place, don't go inside. Don't accept any invitations. And if you hear scraping sounds above you, wherever you are, check your ceiling. Because once you invite something in, once you make a promise to save someone you love, you might find that the cost is more than one life. It might be everyone you'll ever know. Some debts multiply in the dark.